I'm sorry. I don't like people touching my blue blanket. It's not important. It's a minor compulsion. I can deal with it if I want to. It's just that I've had it ever since I was a baby, and I find it very comforting.
Welcome, Gene Wilder. Wonderful to be reminded.
Don't ask me to do that one again, though.
I mean, he looks so formidable, that Zero Mostel, doesn't he? He's a frightening, huge, looming figure.
He was wonderful. You know, the first time I met him, Mel Brooks wanted me to do this part, but he said, you have to read with Zero because he has approval. And my heart was pounding, and I knocked on the producer's door, and Mel opened the door, and he said, come on in. And Zero Mostel was standing in the background, and he said, Z, this is Gene. Gene, this is Z. I put out my arm to shake hands with him, and he pulled me up, and he kissed me on the lips. And I thought at first, is this a joke? He wants to get a laugh. And I realized it was his sensitivity to my situation, that an actor, a young actor, is very nervous, and he'd calm me down, and he did calm me down. That kiss calmed me down.
It's fun to be reminded of that extraordinary film, which is a very, very important film in your life, in your career, of course.
Oh, it changed everything.
Changed everything, didn't it?
If it hadn't been for Mel Brooks, I probably wouldn't be here now talking to you.
Oh, don't know
I would have
that.
been a good supporting actor, and not in Shakespeare, I don't think. Although I wanted to when I was 14, 15, 16. But Mel, that was a different situation. I was miscast in a play called Mother Courage by Bertolt Brecht. And
You're miscast in it?
Miscast in it. And Jerome Robbins was the director, famous choreographer.
Of course.
And it was starring Anne Bancroft. And after a performance, well, before the performance, she said, would you like to meet my boyfriend, Mel Brooks? They weren't married yet. And I said, oh, yes, very much. And after the show was over, I went into the dressing room, her dressing room, to meet him. And he had on this beautiful merchant marine pea jacket. And I shook his hand and I said, oh, you look so handsome and striking in that pea jacket. He said, yeah, they used to call them urine jackets, but they didn't sell. So I knew he was my kind of guy.
We'll talk about him later on, because he it was a huge influence in your life. But let's now talk about the book. You've now channeled your creative energies into writing and painting too, of course.
Yes.
But writing this, you see, this book that you've written here, My French Home, it's a novella, and it's a story set in World War I. Why World War I? Is that particularly? It fascinates Ian. I mean, it fascinates me.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I got the idea for this 38, 39 years ago. And I thought I would write it as a screenplay, because I was in my third movie. But I didn't know that much about writing screenplays. And I wrote this story, and I looked at the screenplay, and I said, this stinks. But the story is wonderful.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll put it aside, and maybe one day, and so on and so on. 38, 39 years later, after I'd finished writing a memoir, Kiss Me Like a Stranger, I didn't want to stop writing. And I said, well, I'll look at that screenplay again. And I said, it is a rotten screenplay, but it is a wonderful story. And so I started over writing it as a novella.
It's about assumed identity, actually. It's about this man,
Yes.
Paul Peachy, who goes to the front and is a kind of misfit in his real life and in the war too. And then, by circumstance, comes across a German spy, and it takes over his personality. Yeah. And he is given by the grateful Germans a French whore to actually accompany him. And it's a story told in retrospect, in a sense. It's a very moving and funny story too, and lots of nice jokes. But so that's really what you're engaged in doing now, is doing that. But also too, I know coming up, there are plans afoot with your friend that we've talked about already, Mr. Mel Brooks, to actually turn Young Frankenstein, which you wrote, into a stage play, a musical.
When I first heard about it, I said, to myself and a few friends over my dead body.
Why is that?
Because I thought putting on the Ritz is a showstopper. Everyone loves it. Peter Boyle and I dancing. And if Mel does a musical, there's going to be 22, 23 musical numbers. Dancing, singing. Putting on the Ritz will be just another, maybe a very good one, but just another number. Well, Mel called, and he told me, and I said, I told him my feelings, quite honestly. And he argued, I argued. Only the second argument I ever had with him since I've known him. And I said, let's stop arguing and let's talk next week about it. And I hung up, and I thought about it. He's not going to write another screenplay, or I write one and he'll direct and we'll do another movie. I didn't think that was going to happen. No. And his wife, Anne Bancroft, died, and I said, I want him to be happy. And I think he has to work. And if that's what he wants to do. And so he called the next week, and he starts right in, arguing again. And I said, stop talking. I want you to do it. What? I said, I want you to do it, I said. He said, you're a saint. I said, no, I'm not a saint, and I don't want to be a saint. You're an angel. I said, no, I just want you to be happy. And so he's going to do this. What will happen with it, I don't know, but...
But it'll make him very happy, that's for sure.
I hope.
They must have said the same for Springtime for Hitler, didn't they? There's only one song, you can't make a whole musical.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's a different kind of humor than... I didn't write Springtime.
No.
But you mean the producers, or are you talking about the song?
Producers, yeah.
Well, it was called Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah, it was originally. That was the title.
And why did it not...
Well, Joseph E. Levine, who put up half the money of a $947,000 budget, he thought it would offend the Jewish people in the Midwest. And Peter Sellers called Joe Levine and said, I just saw one of the best comedies I've seen in about 20 years, and what did you change the title for? And Joseph E. Levine called Mel and said, do you want to change it back to Springtime for Hitler? And Mel said, we open in 5 days. All the ads are out. The posters are up. And so they stuck with the producers, which was fine.
I think Young Frankenstein will make a wonderful musical. I really do. And that song number you talk about, I mean, the problem is going to be, I mean, how do you have another showstopper after that? Because that is a showstopper.
Putting on the Ritz.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, that was our first argument.
Was it?
Our only other argument was...
Were you arguing about putting that in the
I
film?
was writing, and he'd come over after dinner. What do you got? What do you got? And he'd look and see. What is this? Putting on the Ritz. Is this a joke? You're crazy. The doctor and the monster are dancing to Irving Berlin in top hat and tails, and they're tap dancing. You're crazy. Well, I started to argue, and for the first time with him, and I must have been arguing till I was, if not blue in the face, then red in the face. And after 15, maybe 18 minutes, he said, all right, it's in. I said, well, then what'd you put me through this for? He said, because I wasn't sure. I wanted to see if you fought for it, it's right. If you didn't fight for it, out. And that's how it got in.
Well, let's be reminded of it. We've got it here. It's one of my favorite clips of all.
Oh,
look.
Dressed up like $1 million trooper, trying mighty hard to look like Gary Cooper. Smiths where Rockefellers walk with sticks or umbrellas in their midst.
It's a wonderful piece of lunacy. It must have been great fun making those
oh, it
movies.
was. It was the most fun I had on any movie I was in. And Peter Boyle, who died recently, he was just sensational in this part.
When you look back at that, was it with a sense of nostalgia, of sadness, of what? That period in your life when you were making Richard Pryor and with Mel.
And Gilda, and after Gilda died, I thought, I'll never get married again. I wasn't too old to get married, but I said that it won't happen. And then I was writing See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
Yeah, that's your memoir, yes.
No, that was
Oh,
with
sorry, no,
Richard
the film,
Pryor.
the film,
Yeah,
sorry, the film.
and I had to meet this lady at the New York League for the Hard of Hearing because I had to study about the hearing impaired and the blind. So I went to see this lady, and they told me her name was Ms. Webb. I said, oh my God, my luck. Some New England old biddy is going to say, you're making fun of the blind and the deaf. I said, and I walk in there, and out comes this vision in a lavender dress, a little pink, little splashes of blue. And she was working at the New York League for the Hard of Hearing, and she put me through all kinds of different tests and sent me to lip reading classes and everything. And she said, if I ever get the money for a grant, would you help me? I want to put videos out so people who can't afford to come to New York can go to a library. I said, sure, okay. And then about 3 or 4 months later, she called, remember me? I said, of course. I've got the money for the grant. Would you help me? And she sent me the script. And I said, as Zero said to me, I told her, this script is going to close on page 4 because there's no humor in it. You can't just have statistics. So we met in a little Italian restaurant, 11 tables.
Detail.
She put her tape recorder in the center between us at this little table. And she had a brilliant idea of giving me problems of someone who wants to read lips, but the person he's trying to read is chewing gum, or has a mustache covering his upper lip, or standing in shadows and you can't. And I would improvise into the tape recorder, and she would write it up or type it up at home. So we met again the following week. More problems, more improvisation. She typed it up. So the third week, I said, leave the tape recorder at home. And that was our first date. And now we're married 15 years. It'll be 16 years in September. And I'm happier than I've ever been in my life.
Oh, it's lovely. Nice to And your fitness, because you had a cancer scare, didn't you?
I did. I had an ache right here, and I said, oh my God, I've got a kidney stone. And I went to the doctor, and they sent me ultrasound and tissue samples, and they said, no, you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a blood cancer. And a hematological oncologist in Connecticut said, I'm going to give you 9 sessions of chemotherapy, and then I'll give you something, if it all works, I'm going to give you something called Rituxan, and then you're all done. And after 2 sessions, my spleen shrunk down to normal. After 4 sessions, the tumor was gone, and I called my doctor friend in Los Angeles, just to tell him the good news. And he said, I'm very happy for you, Gene, but I'm not content until you see Carol Portlock at Sloan Kettering Memorial Cancer Hospital. And I went to see her, and she said, you're very healthy, Mr. Wilder, and you're very chemo-responsive, but it's going to come back. My wife's jaw dropped, mine. I said, when? She said, 6 months. I said, well, can't we wait 6 months to find out if you're right? And she said, you can, but once it comes back, it's much more difficult to get rid of again. I said, so what do I do? And she said, stem cell transplant. And that's not embryonic stem cell, it's autologous. So you take it from your own blood. They gave me a lot of chemo and took out all those little stem cells after giving me chemo that weren't red or white yet. They didn't know, they're so young. And then they froze them in a bag about this big. And then after the radiation and the chemo, they came in, thawed out the stem cells, sang happy birthday to me. And I said, what? He said, this is the beginning of your new life.
Is it a remission, or?
After 5 years, I went into what is called complete remission. And I was going on a book tour 2 years ago, here in London, and I said, what do I tell people if they say, how are you, Gene? And he said, say you're in complete remission. I said, well, can I say I'm cured? He said, well, cured is an insurance term, actuary tables and all that. Just say, if you outlive your doctor, you're cured. So I thought the best way to achieve that would be to get a gun and shoot my doctor. But I love him, and we're good friends now. And now it's 7.5 years.
Oh, great.
So I'm very healthy now.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. The book I hear might be... the film rights have been bought, in fact, so you've gone right back to where you started.
Yes.
The original screenplay is now going to become a movie.
I had to rewrite a screenplay, though.
Yes, of course, that's true. There's a novella called My French Whore. Gene Wilder, thank you very much indeed. Gene Wilder.